Hello, Elly here from Thankful Flow Yoga. Thank you for joining me for another YouTube practice. Today this flow is for runners, so we're going to be doing a lot of stretching through the lower body, but we will still be looking at this practice from a holistic perspective. So grabbing any blocks or props that you use with your practice, I definitely recommend having some blocks. Coming into a comfortable seated position on the mat. So I'm cross-legged, but if that's not comfortable for you, you can bring your legs out in front or take any other seated position that works for you. The most important thing is that we're coming into a neutral spine position. So you can use your blocks to support you here and have a block under the hips. You can have blocks under the thighs as well if there's any gripping in the hips if you're sat cross-legged. And bring the hands so that the palms are facing down and they're resting on the thighs or the knees. And we'll start with closing down the eyes or taking a steady gaze out in front. I want you to relax all the muscles in your face. Relax the neck and the shoulders. Imagine your shoulder blades running down your back. And start to notice your natural breathing. So just observing how your breath feels today. There's no right or wrong. Seeing which parts of the body move with your breath. So maybe that's the chest, the abdomen, maybe the belly. We'll be leading with our breath, following with the body and observing with the mind. So now starting to open the eyes back up if you had them closed, just taking a steady gaze. I'm going to bring the legs, so the legs are bent and the soles of the feet are on the mat. And they're slightly further than hip width apart, and you're going to bring the hands down behind to the ground to support you, and then shift your knees over to the right, and we're creating two roughly 90-degree angles with the legs and facing over to the right. So our body's going to come over this right leg here, but we're starting in a neutral spine position. So inhale here and lift the ribs away from the hips, lengthening the spine. And as you exhale, seeing if you can start to come into a fold, but keeping the spine long. So that might mean staying a lot higher up. You might start to feel the opening and the stretch into the right hip and the muscles in this area. And you can start to come down lower or stay up higher depending on what feels right for you. But keep prioritizing that length through the spine. So space across the chest, we're not rounding the spine here. And then whilst you're here, reconnect with your breath. So as you inhale, thinking about lifting, lengthening through the spine. This is really, really subtle. And as you exhale, trying to soften into the fold as much as you can. So relaxing, letting go. One more breath on this side. Inhale, start to walk the hands back in. So you're coming away from the fold and you're in this neutral spine position. And with this back leg, so working with a bit of hip mobility here, you're going to see if you can lift your left knee away from the mat. Keep breathing here, pausing here. It doesn't matter if it just lifts a tiny bit, that's okay. And release, bring that left knee back down. And then start to see if you can hover the left foot away from the ground. So we're internally rotating with this left hip now. Keep breathing here. Release that foot back down to the mat. And then using your hands to support you, bring both knees back to neutral. And we'll come over to the other side. So both knees come over to the left. Two 90-degree angles with the legs. So this might already be feeling quite strong. So finding a neutral spine position, either staying here, you could take your breaths here if that's what feels right for you. Inhale inhale, lift up and out from the waist. As you exhale, start to fold forwards, leading with the chest. It's coming into your fold, so your belly is coming over this left thigh. As you inhale, think about making space, lengthening the spine. As you exhale, letting go, relaxing. Maybe you start to come deeper into the fold, but if you don't, that's okay too. Just keep that awareness on your breath. Notice how the body feels. Notice which parts of the body you can feel stretching. So when we're bringing this awareness into the body, we're actually helping to release tension consciously and unconsciously. So often our body stores tension that we don't even realize is there. So working with increasing that awareness in the body is going to help with letting go of some of the tension that is stored. Inhale, start to come away from the fold, coming back to neutral, and then coming to this right leg. So we're going to lift the right knee away from the mat, seeing if you can keep your leg in this 90-degree angle. Keep breathing here, pausing. Bring the right knee back down. Lift the right foot away from the mat. So internally rotating with the hip. Keep breathing here. Release that right foot back down. Use your hands, come back to center. Well done. So now we're going to move into our tabletop position, so your all fours position on the mat. So checking that your shoulders are above the wrists and your hips are above the knees. So coming into our cat and cow. So inhale, start to send your gaze out in front, open across the chest. And then on the exhale, drop the head, come up and out of the shoulders, round the spine, draw your belly button in. Keep the breath flowing. Inhale, lift the head, shine the heart forwards, open across the chest. On your exhale, drop your head round the spine, lift up and out through the shoulders. Draw your pelvis up and in towards the body. Last one, inhale, lifting the head, sending the gaze out in front, opening across the chest. Exhale, drop the head round the spine. Draw the belly button in towards the spine. Inhale, come back to a neutral spine position. And on your next exhale, sit your hips down towards the heels and melt your chest and your forehead down towards the mat, finding your child's pose. So you can close your eyes here or take a steady gaze. This is a resting pose, so allow the body to become passive. Allow your body weight to be supported by the ground beneath you. We're also gently stretching the back, the lower back, the lumbar spine here. And start to notice your breath, where you can feel your breath traveling to within your body. On your next inhale, you're going to start to open the eyes back up and lift the hips away from the heels. Come back to your tabletop position. Tuck your toes under, and on your exhale, press the mat away with your hands. Lift the hips to the sky for downward facing dog. So as you press the mat away with your hands, lift up and out through the shoulders. Hips are coming to the sky. You can actually have your legs as bent as you need them to be. They don't have to be straight here. The spine is the priority, so finding that length. Sometimes if you're quite tight in the backs of the legs, in the hamstrings, the calves, this can mean that you're not able to get that length in the spine in your downward facing dog. So sometimes it's actually a good idea to bend the legs, lift the hips to the sky first, and then maybe you start to find some length through the legs from there. Send your gaze between the knees. Keep taking those slow and soft breaths. On your next inhale, send the gaze between the hands, step or walk the feet in. We're going to lift the hands away from the mat as much as you need to, so feet are roughly hip width apart. Take as much bend as you need to through the legs and then hang down into a forward fold. You can bring the hands to the elbows here, or you can just let them hang heavy. Really important to release any tension through the head and the neck here. So notice if you're naturally trying to hold the head at all, and just really try and let go and surrender. Try bringing a little bit of weight into the balls of the feet. Notice how this intensifies the stretch into the backs of the legs, the lower back. Notice if there's any resistance to the fold. Just observing, we're not judging anything. And then release your hands if you had them on the elbows. Keep some softness in the legs. Bring the hands to the hips. Inhale, draw the belly button in towards the spine, activating the core. Lift the chest, come back to standing. So now we're in our Tadasana mountain pose. So again, just check in with the feet roughly hip width apart. And from here, we're going to ground through this right leg and step your left leg back and find your high lunge. So we want this front knee to be in line with the ankle, so check that you can see your big toe. If you can't, just bring the foot slightly further out. The back leg doesn't have to be straight, you can take a little bit of a bend in that back leg. And as you inhale, really lift up and out from the waist. So we're stretching into the hip flexor here, we're lengthening the spine, finding a focus point out in front, so finding your drishti. And then release the hands down, you can bring the hands to the hips, step your left foot in, the left toes are at a slight angle, the front foot is straight. And we want to bring the hands to the hips and make sure that your hips are square. So you want hips shining forwards. Inhale here, lift your ribs away from your hips. As you exhale, start to fold forwards, keeping the spine long. So again, if you need to stay a lot higher up, that's actually better to stay higher up and keep your length and position with the spine rather than rounding, so being really aware of that as we come into the pose. So you can keep going further down with the fold if that feels right for you, if you're able to keep the spine long. So really deep stretch into the back of the right leg here. With the left leg, press that foot down into the mat to help you stabilize. Make sure that you're not holding the breath, sometimes very tempting to do that. Just keep breathing, taking as deep and full breaths as you can. Inhale, start to slowly lift the chest away from the fold, keeping the spine long, coming back to neutral. Open out into a wide leg position on the mat. So toes are pointing forwards. You can start with the hands on the hips. Inhale here, reach the crown of the head to the ceiling. As you exhale, hinging from the hips, keep the spine long, coming into this forward fold. So it could be that you're using your blocks here to support you, and you could be bringing your hands to the blocks, keeping the spine long, coming into the fold here. You can take a little micro bend through the legs if you need to, depending on how the backs of the legs are feeling. So keep listening to the body, noticing everything that's going on within you today. If you're working without blocks, you can come further down if that feels right for you. You can bring your hands down to the mat. If you are, you're going to be working with walking the heels of the hands in line with the heels of the feet. These are all just options, so take the option that is right for you. See how it feels to shift a little bit of weight into the balls of the feet. Again, notice how that changes the feeling in the body. Come back to your breath. Starting to slowly come away from the fold now, so take a deep inhale. Starting to lift the chest, keep the spine long. So really slow and controlled movements. We're not rushing anything, there's nowhere else to be. Then pivot so that you are facing forward on your mat. The left foot now is at the front. And now we're bringing our right toes to come out at a slight angle here for pyramid pose. Hips are shining forwards. Inhale, lift your ribs away from the hips. Exhale, hinging from the hips, start to fold over your front leg. Keep the left hip tucked in. Keep the spine long. So we're really using the core a lot here as well to keep us stable, supporting the spine. Keep the right leg switched on to support the body. Imagine that you're sending your breath into the back of the left leg as we're opening that part of the body up, stretching, releasing tension, releasing anything that's stored in that area that's not serving you. Inhale, start to slowly lift the chest, coming away from the fold, back to neutral. And then we step this right foot back, so finding our high lunge this time with the left leg at the front. So really important, check your front knee is in line with your ankle. Inhale, sweep the fingertips up to the sky, lift up and out from the waist. Breathing here, finding a focus point or drishti out in front. Stretching into this right hip flexor. Well done, and release the arms. Step your right foot in to the top of the mat. So now we're back in our Tadasana, our mountain pose, feet roughly hip width apart. Inhale, reach your fingertips up to the sky, lift up and out from the waist. Exhale, hinge from the hips, start to fold forwards, bend your legs as much as you need to. Inhale, lift the chest, lengthen the spine, halfway lift. Exhale, bring the hands down to the mat, step the feet back to plank. Pause here for a moment, shoulders above the wrists. Seeing if you can connect to that inner line of energy through the body. Exhale, drop the knees down to the mat. So we're back in our all fours position. And now this is a good place to have your blocks to hand. You may or may not need them, but it's good to have them there to support you. So we're going to go onto the right side first. So when you're ready, stepping your right foot through between the hands. So if you're finding that you're really struggling to bring your hands down to the mat here, or you're really rounding the spine, this is a really good place to use blocks. If you don't have blocks, you could actually use books instead. Just make sure they're stable. And you can frame your front foot with these blocks or books. And then this allows you to have space across the chest, keep your spine long. So checking here that your knee is above the ankle, so joints are stacked. This is the safest way for our joints to be. Sending the gaze out in front. So 2 more breaths here. So we're stretching into the left hip flexor again here. It's a really nice stretch to do when you're doing a lot of running, or even if you're doing quite a lot of kind of sport or exercise. Doing these lower body stretches are a really good place to try and release kind of any of that tightness or tension. but also bring some awareness into the body as well. And now we're going to shift the weight into the left leg, and you can walk the hands back, or you can walk your hands back with the blocks, and we're lifting the right toes away from the mat. This right leg doesn't have to be straight. You can keep a bend through that leg, so never forcing anything. So listening to the body, making sure that your spine is long, space across the chest. So really nice stretcher to the back of the right leg. Breathing here. Starting to walk the hands forwards, bring the weight back into your right leg. And then using the hands, and you can use the blocks here, we're going to shift this right leg back to your tabletop position. So now we're going to come onto the left side. So step your left foot through between the hands, either grabbing your blocks or you can have the hands coming down to the mat. So we're in a nice low lunge here. So what you might find is if you're stepping this foot out slightly further in front, you might be able to find more kind of range of movement stretching into this right hip space. But just make sure that your knee's never coming over the ankle here. So it's okay to feel a little bit of discomfort, but learning about the difference between discomfort and pain. So just trying to observe and be aware of what is alive within your body. Trying to notice everything, even the smallest sensations. And just being aware, we're not labeling anything as good or bad or right or wrong, just accepting whatever's there. And now starting to bring some weight into that back right leg, walking the hands back or walking back with your blocks. So the left toes coming away from the mat. The left leg might be lengthened, you might have a bend through the leg here, that's absolutely fine. Keep the space across the chest and reconnect with your breathing. You might notice that one side of the body feels quite different from the other. Just know that that is very common, that that's okay. You don't have to force both sides to be exactly the same. You can take different options on one side from the other if you need to. One more breath on this side. Then we're going to shift the weight back into the left leg. Use the blocks, use your hands to support you to come back to your tabletop position. And then just walk the hands in, come down to comfortable seated position on your mat. So bring the hips down to the mat, either coming to cross the legs, or you could bring your legs out in front depending on what feels good for you. And we're going to close off the practice with bringing the hands back to the legs, palms facing down, so it's the gesture of grounding. And either closing off the eyes or taking a steady gaze. And we'll take a quick scan through the body. So starting with the crown of the head. So start to bring your awareness into the face and relax all the muscles. Relax everything in this part of the body. So relax the muscles in the forehead, behind the eyes, the cheeks, the jaw. Slowly move down into the neck and the shoulders. Imagine that you're reaching every muscle, every piece of connective tissue, every cell, every single thing that's there. just giving permission for it to relax and let go. Letting the shoulder blades run down your back. And travelling down the spine, all the way down to the base of the spine. Just allowing your sitting bones to sink down into the earth. Taking some slow and soft breaths. When you're ready, we'll start to open the eyes if you had them closed, and just take a steady gaze out in front. If you have more time to take a longer Shavasana or meditation, I definitely recommend that you do so. Thank you so much for being here and practicing with me. As always, please do subscribe to this channel. This allows me to continue offering this free yoga resource. If you want to see the other things that I offer, there's a link below, but do keep in touch and let me know how you're getting on with these flows, if you have any requests, and I can't wait to see you again very soon. Bye bye.